what I've been seeing in the logistics space is, you'll have some companies that are focused on automation that can do any and all processes, but you're starting to see a lot more companies get hyper-focused, whether it's our products. There's other products out there to automate appointment scheduling, because that is a pain in the butt for everybody involved. It's so tedious. Or document uploads or the invoicing process. And so you're starting to get companies get a lot more hyper-focused on their products, which is allowing everything to kind of move forward much, much faster. And you're also seeing a trend in the logistics space of really embracing partnerships between those two products, how they interact better together.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Decoding the Digital Industrial Revolution. I'm your host, Arvind Sareen, and today we have an exciting discussion lined up for you. We'll explore how automation, data analytics, and relentless quest for efficiency are reshaping the industry. Our guest today is someone who spent his career at this very intersection. He's built successful companies from the ground up, consistently ranked as a top performer, and is now at the forefront of developing cutting-edge solutions for the logistics landscape. Get ready to dive deep into the future of logistics, because joining me today is Dan Helman, the Chief Sales Officer at Tabby Connect. Dan, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while now.
Awesome. Why don't we begin with you introducing yourself and talking about what Tabby Connect does?
Yeah, so I'm Dan Helman, Chief Sales Officer for Tabby Connect. I've been at the company about 4 years now. But before coming over to the tech side, I was on the operator side originally. So about 15 years working for logistics service providers, supporting manufacturers with their transportation, outsourced transportation. And then with the company that I was running previously, I came across Tabby Connect, and we helped to work do some new automations together, and I kind of fell in love with it. So I made the jump from operator to vendor. And so it's been a really, really fun ride. It's been seeing the growth we have, the innovation we're pushing out to support these companies has been great. And so what Tabby Connect does is, right now, our primary product is a rate management system. So we automate the rate quoting process for logistics service providers. So every day, a carrier or a broker is receiving thousands of rate requests. And historically, they have to manually process all of those. So it's literally got an email or a notification going to a human. They sit there, they look up their data points, they punch in a calculator, do some math in their head, and send back the rate, which, as we can imagine, very tedious. It's slow. A human can't process as much data points as a computer can. But also, historically, they've never been able to capture all the rates they're getting. So actually, whether it's in their CRM, so they can kind of do a feedback loop and see how they can improve, or how they can help the manufacturer with their network. So all that data has been lost. So our system receives those rate requests, whether it's from an ERP system or free-form text email, and will follow the similar steps that the LSP is doing. So it'll connect to the rate engine, create logic trees for every single different shipper or equipment type, and will then submit the rate back to the shipper. And so from beginning to end, from rate requests being sent to the final rate being received by the manufacturer, can go as fast as 3 seconds. And then all those data points are now being collected. And so there's a lot of value that these logistics service providers can provide back to the manufacturer, different insights on how to reduce their spend and what their trends are, how their network might be changing.
Wow, fantastic. Yes, I do remember I was very excited to hear about this last time as well, because, as Copper Digital, we help customers and a bunch of logistics and shipping and manufacturing companies in their processes, in helping them with digital transformation, where they can look at all the different departments and see how they could use technology. And this keeps coming up because this is an important piece, and not just here in the US. In fact, even companies that we've talked to, some of them in India and Middle East and Europe as well, this is consistently something that needs to be solved for. I think you're doing it very uniquely because, so what's happening is, who is your actual customer then? Is it the person who is an owner-operator or a small shop who has a bunch of these trucks and they're giving these bids, back to maybe the manufacturers or to anyone else who needs a quote, and they may be receiving it via text message or a phone call, but they could still go to Tabby Connect and then enter their information, and then boom, the system can send them the message. It's logical. There's closed feedback loop. And then we'll get into in a few minutes on whether the profitability at the end of this is also inputted so that you have much better data and there's that closed feedback loop. But I think it's fascinating, of course, with all of the automation and being able to use now even Gen AI for a lot of different functions. And then you're able to slice this piece that's, because you want to be in logistics space, there's the innovation that it requires. But within that as well, you're not trying to be everything for everybody. You're just trying to solve a very specific problem, which is, I think, commendable.
Yeah, we see that there's a major gap with this, and we want to be hyper-focused. And so we solve that problem, and we do it right, essentially. Sometimes you try to do too much, you do nothing very well. And so to answer your question, right now, our primary customer base, or who we sell to, are the carriers or the brokers. And size ranges significantly. It could be a $10 million carrier, and then our largest customer we have is $7 billion in revenue a year. So it really runs the significant gamut. Even some of those, $4, $5, $8 billion companies, they have tech departments, they have those, but they have more pressing things to possibly focus on. Updates to their TMS or infrastructure, all of that. And since we have that one focus, that hyper focus, we can just go live much faster, stay with updates, and keep with all the trends just much faster than they can. So it just makes more sense to partner with us. Cool. But conversation for, probably later on during this conversation is, but we are releasing a new product that will be targeted towards those manufacturers, almost like the flip side, to help them with their quoting process and data and start projecting what their freight spend is going to be.
Okay, interesting. So then they're going to be the initiators. The manufacturers would be the initiators, or person who wants to get those shipping services would be the initiator. And they're almost like creating a project that, okay, well, this needs to be shipped from point A to point B. And this is the other information about the load and weight and size and, all of that window, whatever might be needed. And then it sends, and they enter the information that these are the people that I've talked to, that I've used in the past, send it to such and such and such. And then you get the response through that system. But they may not be on Tabby Connect. So they're only getting a text message, right? And the first time it may be that you have to call them and say, hey, by the way, you would have received this message from the system. That's where you can now reply. And, it just helps us automate and stuff. And boom. And then that's an opportunity for you to sign up with the other provider as well, I think, in that case. And then they could be managing everything. So I think it has that snowball effect. I mean, it's super exciting. And so how's the growth? When did you guys start? And how big is your team?
Yeah. So right now for the Tabby Connect product that we sell to logistics service providers, we've had some significant rapid growth. Right now we're averaging about a new LSP or a brokerage going live on Tabby every single week. So one new customer a week with that. So experiencing significant growth, even in this relatively down freight economy that we're experiencing across the U.S. On the manufacturer side, we just went live with our MVP with a couple of manufacturers that were building out the case studies and doing some tweaks to the product. And so that's heavily focused on getting manufacturers off of email for rate quotes. Because right now there's tens of thousands of shippers out there that are emailing 40, 50 carriers to get a rate. They get 40, 50 emails back, try and filter it, try and get the best price, try and track who they're giving things to, who they're not. I guess it's just a nightmare, essentially. And so with that, you're spot on. They can have one central spot where they can store all their lanes. They can send the requests out to their carriers with one single click. If they're API connected, a rate pops up in front of their face right away. If they're not API connected, the rates will still funnel through that system. It just depends on how fast the LSP responds. And then they can see, what all the rates they've requested in the past, who they've tendered loads to, all the data points, cost per case, per pallet by each carrier. So you really dig into the analytics. They'll know exactly what their freight spend has been and really put together projections for the future with it.
Wow, including the ratings for that particular provider, because if you had a bad experience, you could just say, hey, this was delayed, or, this had challenges. And then accordingly, it's not like you cut them off, but they'd have to earn that trust back. And all of those processes can be implemented through your system. That's
exactly
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
There's going to be a significant time savings
Yeah.
Just because not managing all these emails, but also just that data collection and make sure that it eliminates some of that human error that just naturally happens when you have logistics or transportation department that's juggling 20 balls all at the same time.
Totally. So when did you guys start again?
So with this product,
Yes.
yeah, so we just went live with our MVP with 3 different manufacturers right now. And so we are putting few more tweaks to it, and then we will push out to the widespread market here in the next couple months.
Got it. And then overall, when did Tabby Connect start, like as an organization?
Oh, as an organization, yes. So Tabby Connect, historically, we always focus on automation, primarily rating, but we were more customized work for LSPs. The product that you see now that we can go live extremely quickly has been around for 2 years now.
Got it. Okay. And otherwise, the company was more of an IT services company that would do custom projects, but still very specific in that domain. Understood. Yep. And I think that's something that a lot of our audience can learn from as well, because there is this classic debate of, everybody goes through, their journey where they go to school, they, get an MBA, then, they get a job where there's a lot of learning in the first couple of years or something. And then everybody, has an idea that, hey, could I start a business? And then that thought process is, it could either be a services company or it could be a product business. Of course, in a services company, it doesn't take much. You just, whatever it is that you're good at, and you collaborate with other people and you get started, you win a contract and you just deliver. But in a product company, you really have to, solve a very specific, a small problem, and you have to validate that problem exists. That's a big enough problem that people want to pay something to solve that problem. So you go through that entire exercise of finding that product market fit, which could take, even years sometimes. But on the other hand, in a services business, you could generate a revenue right away almost. But what's your opinion on if somebody's out there trying to make that decision about going the services route or the product route from this journey of Tabby Connect, what lesson can they learn?
For me personally, I would go product route, hyper focus on the product route, release the MVP, get into the hands, build a case study, and then start building off that. Like, obviously get it to the market as fast as you can, because you need money. You need to be able to pay the bills. And the product route sometimes can take a little bit of time just to develop it and build it out.
Totally.
But at least with, my experience, our market, what we've seen, that's personally the route.
Yeah, it can be very rewarding when it actually works, right?
Yes.
And it could take a few years for it to work, because at that time, when you're just 2 to 5 years experience, fresh off the school, it's really you having to learn a lot of, skills about running the business and managing a team and holding people accountable. I mean, I still remember the first person, Christy, who left Copper. I was like devastated. I was like, oh no, that means she doesn't love the company. And, why is this happening to me? And I was like, the world is going to end. And of course, so, that learning from when I was 24 or whatever, when I started the company, those learnings have come. And I feel like my advice would be similar. Like, of course, if you know that this is the space that you want to be in, and some idea on who that ideal customer might be, and then you want to talk to them and serve them and see what problem you can solve, yes, that's fine, but it requires a lot of patience, and it requires a compounding effect. Startups or, building these companies is not a, 2 or 3 year thing where you build it and sell it. I mean, those stories, fine, could happen, but those are just stories. I think it requires a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and 10 to 15 years of really being in the business and understanding your customers and being with them and solving those problems collaboratively. But then when it works, the rewards are tremendous. So I guess it's an individual decision, but if you're, really don't know exactly what field and if you don't have, an inheritance that could support it, then I think, maybe you try something with the services route, do that for a few years and learn. And then once you know the product, then you could make that switch. And a lot of people make that switch as well. In my scenario, I've invested in a lot of the products, but I'm very ambitious on how we can help the customers, through the Copper Digital systematic process. So, that's what my answer is, and that's what I'm focused on. Fantastic. So you guys were doing automation, and of course, automation is such a hot topic. Like, what are some examples that you can offer, like how automation is revolutionizing the industry, especially in the coming years?
Yeah. And so what you're seeing is, when we first started, majority of our automation was all RPA, robotic process automation, using bots through the process. Well, now we still use some bots because you need to with some of the disjointed systems, especially in logistics. But we'll use a combination of RPA and APIs when they are available, just kind of what is the most efficient process. And what I've been seeing in the logistics space is, you'll have some companies that are focused on automation that can do any and all processes, but you're starting to see a lot more companies get hyper-focused, whether it's our products. There's other products out there to automate appointment scheduling, because that is a pain in the butt for everybody involved. It's so tedious. Or document uploads or the invoicing process. And so you're starting to get companies get a lot more hyper-focused on their products, which is allowing everything to kind of move forward much, much faster. And you're also seeing a trend in the logistics space of really embracing partnerships between those two products, how they interact better together. Or one of our customers actually brought all their larger vendors together for a round table, just discuss like how we could all work together better to support them. They present to us, their vendors, this is what we want to do. This is what we're thinking. Now poke holes. Like, what are we missing? What can you guys do better to interact with each other to complete what our end goal is? And so you're seeing a lot more partnership engagement, which from what I've seen in the industry hasn't quite been there, 6-7 years ago.
True. And I feel like the whole Gen AI piece as well, right? Like being able to interpret and then, throw some good text that all of these LLMs can now help with, can help with customer support. There could be some other processes within the company. Once they're mapped out, it could be an opportunity to say, okay, well, great. Why don't we have you, the person who's been doing this for the last 4 years, do something more meaningful, but instead we'll give you, this automation and that can happen. So, and we see this all the time across the board in all these industries. Like there are tasks related to like putting stuff in Excel sheet and, from all these different numbers, and then final sheet goes, and that's the monthly update from finance team that's coming up. There's just so many tasks. So I feel like there is so much innovation that is possible. And yes, one route is to keep your eyes and ears open and look for those new products, right? That can just completely revolutionize things. We continue to monitor some good products, and we always promote marketing team coming, oh, Arvind, there's, this new way that we could do outreach on LinkedIn, or, there's a new way where we could utilize this tool or this list. And I think that always helps. So, keeping an eye out on what's coming could be very beneficial, but at the same time, we could also, be looking at the internal process and try to see how we can automate, a lot of these tasks and have the minimum, manual work that's going in, minimum amount of tedious work where it's not as interesting, kind of goes back to 99% of our existence on this planet. We've been hunter-gatherers, and we had a life that was very adventurous and foraging and hunting. And that's what we like as humans. But if you make us do anything mundane, for most people, it's going to be sort of a deal breaker, and they're going to not enjoy that as much. Let's talk about integration. As you mentioned, like there's a lot of vendors we're seeing in the space, and what some of your customers are doing, very creative, is bringing them and posting a vision and saying, okay, well, is this something that you like or not? So with Tabby Connect's seamless integration across multiple platforms and APIs, obviously it's clear that technology is playing sort of a pivotal role in reshaping the logistics landscape. But looking ahead, how do you see technology evolving and further influencing the future of logistics, like beyond automation? If you could throw some light on what else are you the most excited about?
Yeah, as you hear everywhere, and whether it's on LinkedIn, the news, it's all, AI and how it's playing a role. And you are starting to see that a lot more in logistics. Sometimes that term can be a little overused at times, artificial intelligence. but you are seeing it sniffing more. Like there's some really neat products out there where AI is actually analyzing a company's buy and sell strength and predicting those rates and how they all play together, or even just, some new generative reporting that can just ask a question and it's going to dig through the data and present reports back. Now there's still some hesitancy in the logistics space on that because it's so new, and sometimes logistics is a little lagging with their embracing some technology, but it's really gaining a lot of steam because really for logistics companies, they need to be as efficient as possible. It's relatively pretty thin margins with all the new increased costs going on and insurance going through the roof and claims and theft and all these other things that they're getting really squeezed. So they need to be able to operate on thin margins, and by embracing what's automation or AI, it's allowing them to be more efficient. And I like what you said earlier about with those tedious tasks and those kind of things. Sometimes some of this technology gets automation or AI can be like a dirty word to some people because it's taking away the job they might do, but it's really not. It's enabling humans to focus on human tasks. Cutting and pasting from an Excel document to an Excel document is not a human task.
Totally.
Doing higher level thinking, talking to people. So let the technology do those basic things so they can actually do human things.
Love it. Love it. And what about robotics? I know we've talked about AI and automation, but what about robotics? What role are you seeing robotics playing in logistics industry?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little out of that space, but from the conferences I go to, whether it's like Manifest that happens in Vegas every year, there are some really neat robotics companies out there, especially in the warehousing space. Whether it's completely autonomous, it's forkless machines that are sorting and stacking all the racks. It's really, really neat to see. Now, it's a heavy investment that takes a while to really pay off, but that is where the industry needs to go.
Totally. And I hear some of those requirements as well. Like one of our prospects that we were talking to, they said, we've got this forklift, but for safety, we want to make sure that with computer vision, you're able to sound an alarm if it's going too close to an object or a human or whatever, and all that can be done through computer vision. So that's computer vision means AI, and then robotics that's being able to control some of the forklift and actual mechanical work that can go in. And of course, we've all seen some of those videos where we have a lot of robotics in Amazon warehouses and everything's just getting done super efficiently. But a lot of the smaller companies may not have those budgets to install, big machinery or know the return. So I feel like there may be some products. I mean, I've been fascinated with the Tesla robot or any other robots that may come, and we may all have a robot to do a lot of the tasks. And I think I'm excited about that.
Sounds like a fun
how
life.
Long it might take, but I think we'll be all having a robot of our own. That'd be exciting. Okay, well, let's talk about what you do, sort of revenue growth and in the logistics space. As someone consistently ranked in the top 2% of account executives, and what strategies have you found most effective in driving sales and revenue growth, especially in your industry that's rapidly changing? What are your strategies and advice for someone watching, wanting to make their career in account executive or sales? What's worked for you?
Yeah, I've kind of taken almost like a non-traditional approach with it, or just my process. Because I'll be the first to say to him when I talk to I am not a tech guy necessarily. I'm an industry guy. I'm a former operator, so I just know the industry extremely well. I know how their processes work, how things fit together. And so a strength that I've always had is one hell of a work ethic, essentially, but just work harder. But also just really understanding the needs of the client and being able to challenge them on maybe is that really the right thing to do? What's your end goal? Why are you doing that? And have those difficult conversations. But for someone that's, let's say, just coming out of college and they want to get more into a revenue role, I would always recommend, when you're trying to decide which first companies you go to, I would put a lot of emphasis on what kind of training process they have and continual training. sometimes it makes sense to take a lower paying job that is known, this organization's known for their sales process, and that you are going to know the exact clean sales process, how to control the conversation, the questioning, because that is when you'll really catapult into your career.
Love that. Love that. And I feel like that sales focus, even for me as a co-founder, really that seed was planted when I was a teenager, because I did an internship at a company that was selling Oxford dictionaries door to door. And it was so amazing. I still remember, like, we would go there and they almost had this like a dance in the morning. Everybody reports and they're like, it's Tuesday. And what do we do on Tuesday? We sell more. And, we're dancing and singing. And then everybody goes out to those offices and, Central Delhi, and we're knocking on doors and obviously getting rejected, a lot of times. But that's, that inspired me eventually. And I think it evolves. And I like the advice that you offered. Go to a program. If it's an MBA, then maybe that rotational leadership program. I know those are really amazing. We had a bunch of folks from UT where I went to school, join such programs, and they've done pretty well because, it's that little bit of a consulting bent, but even AT&T or, consulting companies do that. And then the other option is joining a startup. And I think that is also drinking from a fire hose, because that learning that happens and just learning about so many different things, and now just being very hyper focused on one specific area. Like for learning, of course, as a company, you need to be focused, I understand. But as an individual, sometimes it's almost advantageous to go work at a smaller shop where you have a good idea. But I think it's about getting a lot of those experiences. And from what you described, yes, I think the what's worked for me, and a piece of advice would be to just be genuine and authentic, and just really love the customer. In your opinion, then switching gears a bit on challenges, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest challenges facing the logistics industry today, and how can companies overcome these challenges through innovation and I guess collaboration as well?
So right now in the logistics space, for logistics service buyers, or their carriers, or brokers, there's a lot of challenges, I guess. One, it is a challenging freight market for them. Rates are down, especially from COVID levels. There's a lot of capacity in the market, and so just rates are actually dropping. And so they are really kind of fighting to stay alive a little bit. And they have to really focus on efficiency and how they're spending each dollar and all those. And you couple that with, right now in the industry, there is a lot of fraud going on. There's a lot of theft and negative players that are stealing identities and stealing loads and stealing money. And so they're kind of getting hit from both sides with it. And so really what you see in the market is, one, how can they combat the fraud through different companies out there? And there's some companies out there doing some really neat things that's really impressive. But then also how to drive as much efficiency as possible. Now, how do you drive as much efficiency as possible? A lot of these companies never really had processes or clean processes, or they thought this is our bottleneck, this is what's costing me money, but they don't really know. And so anytime I talk to a company and they're not really sure what they might need to focus on, what part of the life cycle of the load, it may not be where we sit, it might be somewhere else, is to start mapping out from, the very moment you talk to a prospect, customer, all the way to the invoicing, and what is the time it takes for each process? What's the money it takes for each process? Because maybe you think that claims are your issue, but actually it's your days to bill that's actually sucking up the most money. And so it can be very, very eye-opening to them of where they need to actually direct their focus to drive that efficiency. Where they're losing money is not real.
So using technology to get real insights from the data that you have, and being very evidence-based and data-driven and scientific in your decision-making and prioritizing what needs to be fixed in this market, as you described, that very razor-thin margins requiring efficiency, and with theft and all that is a challenge too. What about training? I feel like a lot of the people in the logistics industry may be not very tech savvy, or maybe coming from different backgrounds, maybe a lot of blue-collar workforce as well. Is that also a challenge in technology adoption?
Yeah, training's always been, for logistics providers a challenge, whether it's training on how to do the job or training how to use technology, or because they're not experts in how to implement a new technology. I mean, they may buy a new tech once every 2 or 3 years, where as a tech provider, you are the expert and you really need to guide them because you sell it every single day. You implement every single day. And so what I encourage companies when they start, vetting out tech providers, don't just look at the technology and the potential ROI you might get, but also dig into like, what is their implementation process? What's their continuous support process? If you have the feeling that it's going to be slightly lacking, that should be some different red flags you need to dig into. Because the last thing you want, and this happens to a lot of companies sometimes, they buy a tech, don't get as much adoption, and now they're just paying it for the next 2 years, and it's just sitting on the shelf, no line item in their P&L. But the implementation and training is so significant, not just on the corporate level, like who's driving the initiative, but are they actually going to work on the actual individual contributor level? People who actually see at the desk that's actually doing the clicks in the system or entering information in the system, and how hands-on it is.
Yeah, I think for sure those are some challenges that the industry needs to look at, and it's such an important industry as well. I mean, logistics stops, the whole world can stop, and we've seen the disruptions already, but it's still very exciting as well. So finally, I guess last question: what excites you the most about the future of logistics, and what developments or trends do you believe will have the greatest impact on the industry in the coming years?
What excites me the most is that we're kind of going through almost just like a tech revolution in logistics space. How quickly some of the advancements have been made in the past 2-3 years are greater than I've seen in the past 15 years.
Really?
In my career. One, adoption of it, but just the new tech coming in from other industries. Usually, logistics is one of the last spaces to adopt some of this technology. So it's kind of flowing in from other industries. Especially we are now in that transition where a lot of the employees and leadership levels are at that little younger generation. They've been around technology a little more. So that's also then speeding it up. And I think that's really why you're seeing automation, but also AI really take a strong foothold and it starts growing significantly because the industry is now seeing like what it can do. They're recognizing that it's not this crazy technology that automation, it's in their Gmail account with, the automatic filters. Like it's just, they start seeing it elsewhere and how it makes their lives much simpler. And they start seeing how they can apply it in their own business.
Love it. I feel like, logistics space is kind of like building roads. And eventually the future is that, in a country, the roads are built and now it's free for people to use. So almost like 20 years down the road, the future that I'm excited about is that, logistics would, almost be merged with all the other industries. And it's like, there's almost this kind of a pseudo conveyor belt where whatever they want to ship, there are processes and you just, leave it on your porch and the drone picks it up and takes it, drops it into a container that gets shipped to, California or wherever it needs to go. And I think that could be a future. And so I love it. Well, folks, we've reached the end of this roller coaster ride through the world of logistics. And what a ride it's been. Dan, your insights have been like rocket fuel for our imaginations. From your epic career journey to the mind-blowing innovations at Tabby Connect and that extreme focus, I think we can all agree that future of logistics is brighter than ever. Listeners, I hope you've been hanging on to your seats because this episode has been a wild one. We've zoomed through topics like automation and AI and robotics and the awesome power of technology. As we bid adieu, remember to keep your eyes on the horizon and your minds wide open. The digital industrial revolution is just getting started. And with folks like Dan leading the charge, the sky's the limit. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry for innovation, and keep on decoding the future. This is Arvind Sareen signing off with a promise to catch you on the next thrilling ride of decoding the digital industrial revolution. Until then, goodbye. Bye, Dan.
All right. Thank you.